Hey guys, this video is going to be a discussion video where I further explain some things I said and give some clarifications to the news video I did last Tuesday. So in last Tuesday's news video, where me and the guest discussed Rhus and Neilikka, I basically said these units are, kind of unfortunate, not worth pulling for, relatively either underpowered or just, not chase-worthy. So I'm going to go into deeper detail in this video to explain what I'm talking about, but more importantly, I'm going to go into the exceptions to the rule. And the reason I still said overall not the greatest. So there are exceptions for Rhus and Neilikka where they are very, very much worth it. Now, let me just clarify right away, first of all. Myself as a player, I am primarily focused on Clash of Wills content. So everything I do as far as pulling, STMR Moogles, who do I level 130, etc., the first and primary thing is based around improving my Clash of Wills performance. Dark Visions, for me personally, is like a secondary thing. When Dark Visions comes out, I do care about Dark Visions. I do the best I possibly can. That being said, I basically never tailor my pulls around Dark Visions. So when I personally talk about a unit as either worth it or not worth it, that is colored by Clash of Wills entirely. Now there are some units that are so good in Dark Visions, I'll still say they're really, really good, and you might want to go for them anyway. But in general, I try to usually avoid giving really specific pull advice. I'll usually just say unit's good or unit's not good. And in the previous video, I said these two units were just not good or not worth pulling for. Now, there's an upcoming Dark Visions. Let me go ahead and go to the Dark Visions tab. So here is all the upcoming Dark Visions based on the JP server. Thank you, Tojo, for maintaining this list. Okay, so we're going to look at all the upcoming Dark Visions based on the JP server. So first of all, we're going to completely ignore this first one. This is the Legend of Mana Vision world that we have skipped. Tojo keeps it here just, in case, but ignore this. This is like almost a year out of date at this point. Not that long. It's very out of date. Even if it does come, it's totally power crept. Ignore that. So the next Dark Visions that we are expected to get. You know what? Before I go into this, let's go back to the units, and we're going to talk about why this matters. So the reason this matters is here's Rhus. Rhus, his best burst is his shifted LB, which, as you can see here, it has modifier boost, so ignore the fact that it looks low. It's got more modifier boost. But notice it gets 70 modifiers stronger against a machine. So Rhus overall gets a little bit of a power versus machine, but he's still sort of on par even against non-machines. Now let's go to Neilikka. Neilikka is much more hyper specialized. She and her shifted LB has no regular modifier whatsoever. It is just only racial modifiers versus stones and machines. And again, like Rhus, she does have generic modifiers that boost this. So she does do approximately 282x modifier versus mismatched targets, which is 10 out of 12 races. But against stones or machines, she does stronger. Against both stone and machine, she does really well. So let's go back to the Dark Vision setup. So in the upcoming Dark Visions, are there any final 3 bosses that are machine or stone? So the next one that is technically due on Global has a machine fight. It's a magic fight. It's also wrong element. Remember, Rhus is locked to water and Neilikka is locked to thunder. They are hard locked to those elements. So no matter what, you can of course mix elements, but they will always have thunder or water. But anyway, this is a magical fight, so you're not bringing them to this magical fight. Not to mention it's wrong elements. The next Dark Visions is JPDV25. Notice the final boss is machine and stone. It is a perfect match to Neilikka. Now you might also notice it was weak to water and wind only. not thunder. Keep in mind, Global has always changed the final boss of Dark Visions to be neutral. They remove the weakness and make it equal strength to all 8 elements. Meaning, they don't do this for Vision Worlds, but they do it for Dark Visions. This is a Dark Visions, meaning unless Global changes its pattern, this is going to be a Machine Stone final boss that is neutral to everything, meaning take whatever element you want. Now let's come back to this in a moment. Next month, there is a stone. It is physical, and this is a sub-boss. Global does not remove the weaknesses on sub-bosses. So this is a stone enemy. It is not weak to thunder. It is very unlikely you're going to be taking Neilikka to this fight. The next one has no machine or stone at all, no machine or stone at all, no machine or stone at all. So other than this literally one fight ever in the next foreseeable 6 months, there is only one time their races will ever match. So this is the reason I said Rhus and Neilikka are not really worth it, because obviously you're not taking them to Clash of Wills. And then for Dark Visions, they have one single fight within the next 6 months that they're going to be a good pick for. Now, how good of a pick are they? Let's go ahead and look at some damage calculations. Now, this is a copy, or this is my DPS spreadsheet. Now, this new tab I made, I went and just put some of the top units on Global for comparison for Dark Visions, and I custom built every single one of them specifically for this fight, the Machine Stone. So all of these are built with killers in mind, and here's some assumptions. We're using a Thunder party because Sylvie can 100 Thunder amp the party. So all these calculations are assuming a Thunder party. We're assuming we're using Sylvie to do the Thunder Amplify, which means all these LB mods are including Sylvie's extra LB modifier boost. We are assuming we're bringing Esther because she's still very strong and she brings a very good LB field. So Esther is on the party, so anyone using a Limit Burst gets an extra 100 modifier, or 100% boost, I'm sorry. We're assuming that someone on the party is buffing Stone and Machine Killer by 150%. You may have more, you may have less, but for the sake of calculations, we're assuming everyone has a 150 buff to both those races. Normally in my calculations, I don't use Ruler's Gear, but for this specific calculation, I allowed Ruler's Gear. So people that Ruler's Gear, if it was best in slot, all of these units are using Ruler's Gear. And we're assuming we're fighting a stone and enemy boss. So here's some calculations versus a specific stone and machine boss. Look at Neilikka. When both of her races match, her damage is excessive. It is very high. And that's the reason I'm making this video. Because if a player, for example, just blindly followed my advice, did no research of your own, and you're also, this is probably doesn't exist, but assuming a player that does no research of their own, and they're also a top 100 DV player, if you, based completely on my advice, decided to skip the Neilikka banner, when this Dark Visions comes around, it is due very soon, when it comes around, you're just not going to be scoring very well, because Neilikka, during her very customized, specific boss, will be, at the current time on Global, probably the highest damage dealer on Global, with Sylvie's Amplify. This is assuming Sylvie's Amplify, etc. So Neilikka, in that exact scenario, is going to be very high damage. Now let's go ahead and look, Angela, Chizuru, and again, all these are built for this boss. Like, for example, Wilk is doing his LB with modifiers. Some of these, like, for example, actually most of them, like Sky's jump, don't even really count that because, yeah, turns out her jump is really bad on a Thunder team, but I calculated it anyway. This is just some comparisons. But anyway, here's Rhus. So Rhus, even when his race matches up on a Thunder team, and again, unless we get a 100% water amplifier, you're probably running a Thunder team or an Earth team. But there are no AoE 100 water amplifiers for Rhus. But he's going to split the amp at a 70%. So that's his own 40 plus a 100, which equals out to a 70. So he does like less than Esther, less than Chizuru, less than Angela. about the same as Wilk. So this is why I said Rhus is not super great, because that is versus his preferred race. If you're not fighting a machine, Rhus's damage is actually worse than Knights of Grandshell. It's element locked, and it's worse than all of our global exclusives. Like Wilk, Esther, Chizuru, Angela. Not to mention, power creep continuously moves along. Next month, the August Clash of Wills unit. If we follow the pattern, it's probably going to outdamage Chizuru. The one in September, probably going to outdamage that unit. The one in, October, probably going to outdamage that. So power creep just keeps going. So Rhus, without matching, is already kind of behind the curve. Neilikka, on the other hand, if she is matching one of her races, machine or a stone, she is still pretty good. Better than Esther, in fact. Even with just matching one of her races. If she is matching neither of her races, she's even worse than Rhus. And keep in mind, the only content that this matters for is Dark Visions. You have one single boss. You are never fighting another machine, and you're not fighting another stone after this in the next 6 months. And I can just tell you from Power Creep, these units are not going to be relevant 7 months from now and beyond. So they are never getting another fight ever in Dark Visions before they are just power crept from being too old. So that is the reason I said for the general population, these units are not worth pulling for. The exception, if you are a player who tryhards in Dark Visions and you really want to seriously, competitively fight on Dark Visions number 25, you're going to want, at the very least, Neilikka, maybe Rhus and Neilikka, potentially. I don't know. But Neilikka is definitely going to be a strong contender on that thing. But, once again, I try to give my advice for the general population. I do not feel for a regular, just stance, everyday, non-Super Whale player, I don't think you should spend, $40K chasing an EX3 Neilikka for one single fight ever. But if you're a top 100 player, you got to do it. That is the cost of being a top 100 player. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to do a clarification because I know in my head if I didn't put out this video, then there's going to be at least one player that is going to skip this banner, and then they're going to come at me and be like, I can't believe you said Neilikka's bad. All of a sudden, all the rank 1 whales are using Neilikka in all their clears, and they're all high-scoring Iron Giant, and I'm doing terrible because I skipped Neilikka because you told me Neilikka was bad. Well, guess what? She is bad, except for this one fight. So if you want to go hard on the Neilikka banner for one single fight ever, and then she's going to be permanently benched, there you go. I have given you all the information. Do with it as you will. But I really wanted to just do a clarification so people can go into this with their eyes open. If you want to chase a unit for one single Dark Visions fight ever, go with all the luck in the world. But yeah, I personally am not pulling these units for one Dark Visions fight. I will instead pull units like Chizuru, who is non-elemental, high damage, and will be used on every fight in both Dark Visions and Clash of Wills. That's what I choose to use my resources on. Anyway, there it is. So if you decide to go for Neilikka and or Rhus, have at it. See you next time.